I am delighted to introduce Attica Kenton-Dau, who is not only an osteopath, but also a personal trainer with a great love of sports that includes weight training, rugby, and most recently, Muay Thai. And Attica, welcome. You've just actually got back from Thailand, where you were for 3 months studying
Yeah,
Muay Thai. How was that experience?
it was great. It was great. It was a very humbling experience, trying something new, stepping out of your comfort zone. It was really good. Yeah,
You came back in some of the best shape I've ever seen you in. You're always in pretty good shape, but you definitely leaned out.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
double sessions each day or
Well,
something.
yeah, 2 hours of training a day, or actually 4 hours of training a day will do that to you, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So I wanted to ask you, for someone who doesn't know what osteopathy is, who's never been to an osteopath, what can they expect?
The first consultation is getting to know the patient. So you guess you sit down and that's why I spend a little bit longer. So we get to know what their goals are, why they're coming in, what sort of pain, and then previous injuries as well, their whole medical history. And then we will go down to, I guess, the next stage is going to assessment. So, you do some orthopedic tests, do a few other tests to check what muscles are tight, areas of restriction. And then I guess we identify some key areas in your body that aren't moving. And then we sort of explain to the patient, what I think is going on and then how we're going to treat it. And then we have a variety of sort of treatment options and different sort of modalities we can use to free up those areas that aren't moving. Then after we would provide some exercises.
Most osteopaths, it's kind of like you go to see them, they adjust you and they let you go or whatever. But you've got this
Yeah,
other element, right, with the personal training. How
yeah.
do you bring that into your approach?
Yeah, exercise and sort of activity is really important as well. You can do what you can in the clinic room and in the clinical setting, but obviously giving the patient the tools to sort of help themselves, as it's a little bit of, maybe diet advice, something like that, just something they can go back and work on, and, and really sort of look at that whole picture of health.
I find that really interesting, Attica, given that you're my nephew and we come from a family that is kind of a holistic health family. Speak a
Yeah.
little bit about how, you were raised with the influences of nutrition and things like that.
Oh, I guess I had it forced upon me. I had no choice really, but I guess mum's a integrative doctor. She worked, a lot of herbs and homeopathy, and so I think the diet was really important.
You were
Growing up,
raised on organic food, right? That you grew
organic food, yeah,
yourselves.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Maybe not so much later on, but I think as a general rule, 70-30 has been pretty good. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. So if somebody comes to you and they're in pain, that's the typical reason why somebody would kind of look up at
yeah, yeah.
an osteo. How do you approach it? Where do you begin with them?
Well, I think what osteopathy gives the ability to just look at the underlying cause of the pain. I think treating the symptom of pain is quite easy. We recommend taking some painkillers. You can take ibuprofen, paracetamol, but to address the underlying cause of what's causing it, someone has a dodgy knee, and then they have back pain. Maybe it's look at the whole picture of the body and to really sort of try to identify what's the fundamental problem.
And is it true sometimes, Attica, that you can have pain in one place, but it's actually the problem somewhere else?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Interesting. So you have to identify that. I
Yeah.
I recently met someone who had been adjusted by you, and it was a woman who's about, I would say, in her 40s, and she was pleasantly surprised. First of all, you got her out of pain. She had a shoulder problem, but she was surprised that somebody who's kind of like a tough guy like you, like a big guy who rugby player and stuff, was actually really quite gentle, but also how intuitive you were. She said that when you put your hand on the site where she had the pain, you understood kind of through your hands. And I thought that was a really nice compliment. Do you vary the sort of intensity of how you would work with maybe a 40-year-old woman in pain or a rugby player?
Yeah,
What's your
yeah.
approach?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think you probably get that a lot. I think what we got trained is we'll start with the hands. I guess the hands. We do a lot of palpation work when we're training. Just do a very gentle, very subtle sort of feeling how the tissues are moving, and you become a great master eventually. Well, so we're all still learning, but and then I think with the force and treating different patients, I think it's the appropriate amount of force to get the therapeutic outcome. You
Yeah.
get a rugby player in, maybe they need a little bit more force, you know, and then
Yeah.
you get someone a bit more delicate, you just the appropriate amount of force, it's not. There's nothing aggressive and violent about it. It's very gentle. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because sometimes people that have never been to an osteopath might be afraid of that because there's this idea like you're going to crack them or whatever.
That's the beauty of osteopathy. There's one modality of treatment, but there's a whole variety, and there's many ways to get that therapeutic outcome. And I guess it's working with the patient to see what they want and then also what's going to give them the best outcome as well.
And how often would you typically see someone who came to you, for instance, with an injury that was in pain?
So it sort of depends on how on the patient and what their condition is. For me, I like to see a patient, do the initial consultation, and then I like to see them twice a week, but for a shorter period of time. I think a lot of osteopaths do about 30 minutes of for one treatment. I'm trying to bring it down to about 15, but then seeing them twice a week. So I still am seeing them 30 minutes in that whole week, but I get to catch up with them, and see how they're doing. And we get to see each other more frequently. So that one, that gives more accountability, and two, I think you can get some better results with that as well.
Interesting, yeah. And I think I remember you sharing a story with me about a marathon runner who came to you who was like desperate because he had been to physios and things and nothing had helped. Can you
Yeah.
explain a bit how you supported him?
He's actually an ultra marathon runner. So
Oh, oh.
I think it came to me, he couldn't run. So obviously it's not very good if you're an ultra marathon runner, is it? So hamstring injury, calf injury, so a lot of the posterior chain. And for him, I think it was the last port of call. He was the last hope. Otherwise he's going to give up his career running. We sort of tried, instead of just looking at the one aspect, these all these hamstring injuries and all this, your torn muscle and so forth. We just looked at the bigger picture. We just went stripped it right back to the biomechanics of how it was running, what muscles were being utilized and what weren't. And and then we started from there and we built him up over the next, I think it took us about 6 months. And then after that he was able to, run again. I think he ran like a personal best or
Wow.
uh, yeah, and
He
obviously
must have been
ultra
so
marathon.
relieved.
Yeah.
And what would you say about the role of osteopathy in somebody that wants to live well in later years? Do you think that osteopathy has a role to play in that?
I think it does. I think meeting the patient where they're at and what their goals are gives that stage in life where that it's a bit hard to build up muscle mass and maintain, and how to work with that. How do we, if your goal is to be active in your 70s and to be with your grandchildren, spend time with them, what do we need to put in place? Maybe get a little bit more exercise or give you some recommendations. And obviously, there might be some areas that, are a bit stuck and that might, need a bit of treatment as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and so when you first meet a patient that comes in, are you able to tell, for instance, if you mentioned the posterior chain earlier, if that's weak in them, or say if, is there something that you see a lot, Attica, where people that have had desk jobs have a particular issue that you can help them with as an osteo to sort of free them up?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. So nowadays, since everyone has a mobile phone, everyone's neck is sort of, in more flexion, right? Everyone's on their phone craning over, particularly if
She
you're
sits
working
up
a
straight.
desk job. Yeah, I guess that's straight now, yeah. But if you're working a desk job, it can, you can actually lose your lordosis in your neck. So
Which
that's
is the natural curve.
natural curve, yeah. So everyone's on that phone. So you have a lot of built-up tensions to that in that sort of upper back region.
Is that
So
that like what's it called? Dowager's hump
that would just
thing
help.
that
Yeah,
happens?
yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah.
is that something you can help with?
Yeah, it's something you can help with. Yeah, absolutely.
And how long would it help like take to if you had that issue, if you
Well,
noticed?
it varies. It varies on sort of how long it's been going on for. You can
Yeah.
get it early, it's a lot quicker. But then the longer it's been there, so the more work you have to do. But yeah, I have had some good results with that. Yeah.
Mm. And what inspires you most about the work that you do as an osteo?
I get joy, I guess, out of having patients come in and able to really help them and sort of, guide them on that path they want to go down,
Turning them into Muay Thai boxers if that's
Oh,
what they want
well,
to do.
whatever their goals are, maybe it's
Yeah.
just, maybe not everyone's going to be do Muay Thai, but maybe if your goal is to be more active, when your grandchildren come around, or just stay out doing the things you enjoy doing, keep doing those things, and let's make a plan of how we're going to achieve that together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. Okay, so if somebody wants to get in touch with you, um,
Yeah.
to learn more about your work or to book an appointment, where do they
Yeah.
go?
So I think the website's live now. It's eosalign.co.nz. So you can book through there. And I think we're going to be opening up a clinic in an IHF Health Club in Christchurch at the crossing. And yeah, yeah.
Exciting. Well, I wish you all the best with your new business. It's nice chatting with you.
Thank you very
I
much.
look forward to an osteo treatment soon.
Yeah, we can arrange that.
Awesome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.